over at St. Anne's in the pantry and helping out over there. And they also got to experience the Auschwitz exhibit in Boston one day, which was phenomenal since we were able to experience the Holocaust Museum. So kudos to the 8th grade team for providing that for our kids as well. Destination Imagination, I know this board and community are well aware of the trip because they were here last time talking about it. I just wanted to give a shout out. They competed over the weekend and did really well. They came in 22nd, which I think is phenomenal when you're competing against teams from all over our country and the world. They met kids from just all over the world, and it was just a phenomenal experience. So congratulations to our team, and thank you to Mrs. Wise-Carver for making that happen for them. This year, our 7th grade participated in something called CU for Reality. It's a financial literacy program through I have to get it straight, the Federal Credit Union. There are 2 programs. So our 7th graders participated in the CU for Reality with Federal Credit Union, where they came and did some financial literacy with them, and then they had an experience where they took on a job and had to learn about paying taxes and insurance, and got to really see at the end of the day if they ended up with money. It was a great experience. And our 8th graders are able, thanks to Pinkerton, to participate in Bite of Reality, which is Service Credit Union, a similar program where they've had a financial literacy program through social studies classes a couple of weeks ago, and they will be going to Pinkerton next week to do a similar activity. The person who came talked a lot about how when he was young, he wasn't very good with his money, and it was a hard lesson, so he's really dedicated to kids learning about the importance of financial literacy. So that will be a great program for them as well. Family Steam Night, another thing I know you've heard a lot about, but I just want to say it from my perspective again, what a wonderful night it was. Mrs. Mayu and Mrs. Wise-Carver really they're so dedicated to the work that they do with the students, and the students put on an amazing night, very well attended, lots of activities, lots of Hampstead history. It was really cool to see them fold in the anniversary, the birthday of Hampstead this year, and see the new things that happened. And it was a beautiful night to be outside with a lot of the activities. So just really great job, and congratulations to them. We had Teacher Appreciation Week after vacation as well, and I just wanted to say thank you to the PTSA for all of the treats and recognition they gave our teachers and staff, who all felt very much appreciated. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely a fun week for the staff, and they really appreciate all of the pampering. Our 7th grade just had the opportunity last week to do 2 field trips. Half of our students went to a ropes course called Take Flight, where they did some high ropes, some team building. It's a really great time. And while half was there, the other half walked actually over to Sunset Lake, and were able to do some ecology on the lake, some lake ecology, and had a really great experience. Did a phenomenal job with a long walk, and we had some great staff. Mrs. Griffin worked really hard with the Sunset Lake Campground and the organization who supported the work. The kids then swapped the next day. Mr. Thompson was able to go over there. I was able to stop in and see the kids doing lots of different activities, a lot of hands-on. The 7th graders were tired last week, but just really, really loved it. And those outside learning experiences for students are huge. A big thank you to Brewster Bartlett, who was a longtime teacher at Pinkerton and has been involved in this kind of activity with Hampstead in the past, but worked with Mrs. Griffin and helped the kids out, and gave a very, very nice $300 donation in honor of Bob Nugent on behalf of the Sunset Lake Association. So we thank him for that donation that he gave us last week that will go towards more activities and in ecology. So thank you for that. And before I get into transitions, I'll end with transitions. I just wanted to give a shout out for our concert and art show last week. I didn't put it in here because it hadn't happened at the time of my writing, but we had a fantastic band and chorus concert. Thank you to Mr. Robbins and to Ms. Moulton for putting on that performance. Our kids were great. They were proud. They had worked hard, and it showed. And also thank you to Mrs. Downey for her efforts in the art show. If you didn't get a chance to walk down this hallway when you came in here, I would encourage you to do so. There's some phenomenal artwork posted, and kids got to come and show their families their art. You see some on the walls over here, but it's a lot of work to put the artwork up and display it nicely, and Mrs. Downey does a phenomenal job. And lastly, I just want to end with transitions. It's that time of year. Although we've been working on the transitions kind of throughout the year, we work hard with our 8th graders going to Pinkerton. They've had the chance to visit Pinkerton. They've had the chance to work with Mr. Mayu very closely on course selection earlier in the year. Lots of meetings are happening with our special education staff and with our counseling staff and administration between our building and Pinkerton to make sure that our kids are ready for Pinkerton. And believe me when I tell you they are ready. Our 8th graders are ready to move on, and that's okay. That's a good thing. But I assure you we've been working hard to make sure that Pinkerton is ready for them as well. So that's gone well. And as well with that, we're working hard with Central School to bring our 4th graders up who will be middle schoolers next year. So there's been a lot of transition meetings happening, teachers meeting with teachers, case managers meeting with case managers, counselors meeting with counselors, preparing us for the needs of our students coming up. And also, we will be preparing the students and the parents. So next week on Tuesday night, we have a parent night. Hopefully, our 4th grade parents can come at 6 o'clock next Tuesday. That day, some students and staff will go down to Central School and talk to the 4th graders at Central about what is middle school like, give them a little bit of a little dip their toes in the water of middle school, and then we'll bring them up for Step Up Day on June 12th. And that's an exciting day where they'll get to eat lunch up here, see the school, meet the teachers, and hopefully get some of the nerves out for those students who are nervous about the big, scary middle school. So we're excited to have another grade level of students joining us as we say goodbye to our 8th graders. Any questions?
I'll just say, obviously the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. is an amazing experience for them, but I'm also really pleased to hear that the kids that didn't get to go got to do really meaningful things. So that's great. I'll also just say congratulations to the DI team. Seeing bits and pieces of their presentation, seeing how hard they've worked, just really pleased that they got the chance to go and that we as a district had a hand in that happening. So
I'm a big fan that I see all this stuff on social media before I come into the school board, which makes me excited to hear about it when I get in here. So good job with that.
Any other questions for Ms. Milbury? Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to have you stay up here because we're going to shift the agenda around. But prior to that, next we are going to get an update from our student liaison, Shannon Caffell.
All right, this Thursday, seniors have their banquet, and throughout this week, they're using up their Pinkerton spirit for Senior Spirit Week. This Sunday, seniors will watch the sun go down and reminisce on this year. June 5th is the senior cookout, and June 6th is senior awards night, and also Hampstead seniors will get to walk through the middle and central schools. Last Tuesday was the underclassmen awards ceremony in the National Honor Society induction. Freshmen and JV baseball won their championships. Boys track was first runner-up, and girls track placed 5th. JV boys lacrosse also won their championship. And on that note, information for fall sports is up on the website. Biotechnology classes participated in activities and labs at UNH. The Just Like Us Club raised $400 for Make-A-Wish New Hampshire with their car wash. And junior prom was a big success. And then lastly, I would just like to say thank you for the last 2 years. This position has helped deepen my understanding of what the school board does and has contributed to improving my public speaking skills, and I'm forever grateful for this opportunity.
Well, with that, we've been grateful to have you these past 2 years. So this is your last meeting, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So on behalf of the school board and the district, I just want to recognize you and your service over the past 2 years. It's been a amazing to hear you speak, and you really are truly a role model for upcoming high school students that may want to pursue this. So on behalf of the school board and the district, I'm going to have you pass this down. We did get you a little gift. If we can all give Shannon a round of applause for her efforts over the past 2 years. Okay. All right. So at this point, we are going to shift our agenda around a little bit so that we can put the grade 5 classroom size waiver request up and make it a priority item here. So if Principal Milbury, we can move forward with the update there, that would be awesome.
I sure can. I totally appreciate that class size is always one of those things that can be a tricky topic and a sensitive topic. And I would first like to just say I'm not a fan of class sizes that are bigger than what we typically see. So when we're pushing limits, it's not a comfortable place. And I appreciated the discussion. I know I wasn't here at the last meeting for the discussion, but I was able to watch the discussion, and that was very helpful to me. I certainly know that, how things went with 4th grade, middle school. Sometimes we say, well, it's okay to have larger class sizes, and sometimes we need to look at the needs and say, is that going to be what's best for kids? I stand up here before the board and the community, and that is my priority, is what's best for kids. So I did a lot of thinking. We talked as teams, we talked about what are the options. We have the option to continue to ask for a class size waiver, right, and to stick with 4. I know that we're not afforded with, here's an extra teacher, place them in 5th grade, and that's okay. But I had a lot to consider in terms of what staff could I pull without much impact. And certainly anything we do impacts the schedule, and we need to reshuffle the schedule, but that's not the barrier, right? Because we can do that. We have time to work on the schedule. So the schedule isn't the barrier, but it's, if I pull this staff member, does that impact other students? And so really looked at about 8 options throughout the building of what could work to provide 5th grade with a 5th teacher. And I am pleased to say that I did come up with a solution that I feel is a really good solution that will work and be the least impact on all of our students and have the greatest impact on our students at the same time. So I am not asking for a waiver. We are going to be putting a 5th teacher in 5th grade. This microphone does not want to stay, FYI, so hopefully people can hear me. I know they're listening intently. I have met with the staff and had this conversation, so my staff all knows what the plan is for next year. We have a 5th teacher in 6th grade right now that was going to go to 7th grade. And so instead of her going to 7th grade, she's going to go to 5th grade and provide a 5th teacher in 5th grade. It's Mrs. Kennedy who does STEAM. She'll continue to do some STEAM, but we're also going to focus on executive functioning skills and other skills that will be important for brand new middle schoolers in that 5th class. And then what we will do, 7th grade is going to be, has 114 kids in it next year, 7th grade, and clearly needs a 5th teacher as well. So the change there will be Mrs. Randall, who has been teaching Spanish in 8th grade, is going to teach Spanish in 7th grade next year. So that will provide a 5th teacher in 7th grade. So our 2 largest classes will have the 5 teachers. And we are able to kind of work around that within the schedule to make sure that students are getting what they need.
Great. I was just informed that the audio was not working when Courtney was speaking. Now that the news has been delivered by Principal Milbury, I did want to give you the opportunity to speak if you wanted to, but okay. Excellent.
I can let the community know she made some great points, and I, philosophically, I think we agree with all of those things. We want what's best for kids. So.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to come up to the microphone, just so that the community can hear. Yeah.
Or you can say it and I can repeat it. It's up to you.
My question, I guess, is that.
Yeah. Could you please state your name and your address?
And I have a son in 4th grade that's also being impacted by this. I can stand if you want.
just state your name and your address. That would be great.
address too?
Yeah, I know.
My name is Sharon Danino, and I live at 59 Faith Drive.
Excellent.
So my son is also in fourth grade, and I believe that, I know they're a balloon year, but I also believe that the grades below them have increased as much, so that like the size impact necessarily isn't going away. Is there a plan in place to make sure that when our next year fifth graders become sixth graders, that we will have a budget for like an extra teacher so that this doesn't keep having the shuffle? Because I believe, I'm pretty sure, I think at least the first and second graders now at Central School are also a very larger group, and they've had to bring on more staff as well. So I just didn't know if we had talked about like a long-term plan so that it wasn't constantly the shuffle of resources to kind of keep it successful for everybody, was my
Valid question. I would turn that over to Bob.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, Courtney and I were discussing this prior to the start of the meeting. So there's been this sort of teetering back and forth between 4 sections and 5 sections over the last couple of years, at least since I've been here. And we're no longer really teetering. We're really at 5 sections with a couple of exceptions. One exception next year is we anticipate a very small first grade classroom. So moving forward with a master schedule plan that would provide 5 sections where needed will be a lot easier because we're really there right now. We look at our enrollment numbers when we're doing budgeting to determine whether or not we're going to add a position. Obviously there's a lot of scrutiny involved with that. We look at overall class size and then the strategy that we're employing here, and we also did last year when we added the 4th grade teacher, is just the shifting of a position. So last year we had the FLES position, the Spanish position that was vacant, and we used the funding for that to add the 4th grade section. So we really look at maneuvering around some of our positions to account for the larger class size.
Okay, great. That was just my concern with each year moving forward, to make sure that they kind of get the resources that they need. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Principal Milbury. Personally, I'll just say I'm very pleased to hear that that you were able to, shift around the staff and do it without impacting the current budget, the need for a new position. So I commend you on, really kind of being thorough and exploring all of the different options to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you. I will say, we worked hard this year to have the schedule ready much earlier so that we could maybe look at students leaving middle school with their schedule. That is likely not going to happen because we will need to do some schedule reshuffling, but I am committed to making sure that students have adequate time in the summer. We'll open up the schedule so they can see their schedule in the summertime well before the school starts. It just probably won't be by the end of school because it's going to take us a little bit of time to do that, but otherwise we're in great shape.
And I'm assuming on that June 4th parent night that the 5th teacher will be introduced to the students?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the staff was really just kind of informed of that today. So as long as she doesn't have a prior commitment, I have not asked yet,
Okay.
but they have already asked, can she come down? Our teachers are meeting with Central School's teachers on Friday, so we were going to make sure we find her coverage so she can participate in that. So I'm very sure if she's able to be there, she will be there too.
Great.
She's excited.
Okay. Any other questions for Principal Milbury or comments?
question.
Yes.
Sorry. First of all, thank you for looking at that. Will the 8th graders still have Spanish, or how will that work?
So that will be a little bit of to be figured out. We have one cohort right now that is a full year Spanish cohort in 7th grade. That would be considered our advanced Spanish class in 8th grade. They will continue and have a full year of Spanish again. Other 8th graders, if they are interested in Spanish, we're going to be exposing them to more Spanish through the Unified Arts rotation. Looking at, could we provide an after-school Spanish opportunity for students who want to explore some more Spanish? But there are students that won't get it in 8th grade. So that was the only challenging part of that. But we also know that there are students that don't necessarily want to take Spanish and want to explore other languages at Pinkerton. So we'll be having those conversations with the current 7th graders in the coming days that we have left of the school year. It's a great question. Anyone else?
Any other questions for Principal Milbury? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Parents, if you want to stick around for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. Otherwise, if you need to get home to your kids, we totally understand. Thank you all for coming. Okay. Board members, in your packets, you have policy JH. And this is really a notification to the public that this policy is out here. It has to do with truancy and the attendance policy. Bob, if you wanted to give a little more information on kind of the details of the policy and where parents can go to find it, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have brought forward policy JH, which we will actually discuss during the policy section of the meeting. But there's some interesting language in this policy, which comes as a model policy from the New Hampshire School Boards Association, which says that it will be placed on the agenda of a school board meeting to allow for public notice, so a sort of a separate agenda item. And during the discussion, there may be questions. We can discuss the policy more in depth. This is really about updating the policy. There are some minor changes to it. And also the supporting materials for school board meetings, including policies under review, are on the school district's website. And I'm also happy to entertain any calls, questions, emails that folks might have about our attendance policy currently or the one that's being proposed.
Great. So board members, if you will go ahead and look this policy over.
No.
Okay. So I'll be looking for a motion to, the board considers approving first read of this policy later tonight. Oh, so it looks like we will,
So I would recommend that we hold off on any action right now, and whatever action the board entertains can happen during the policy section of the agenda.
great, thank you. Okay. All right. Ms. Tomaselli, we are going to move into the professional performance evaluation model.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to present our new professional performance evaluation model. First, I would like to thank my colleagues who have served on this committee, as they've been deeply committed to this work with me over the past 2 years. They are Kara Gordon, Carrie Powers, Kate Kuchar, Dr. Tara Lynn Cheney, Erin Milbury, and Jessica Parsons. I could not ask for a team who approached this redesign with more mindfulness and genuine interest in the profession. The in-depth conversations we've had about teaching and learning, the subtle implications of our language choices, and also how incredibly diligent this team has been to make this committee work a priority despite everyone's very busy schedules. I truly appreciate the collaborative nature with which this evaluation model was born. And I also want to thank all of the teachers who have shared feedback with us and who have participated in the pilot of this new evaluation model this year. We appreciate all of the support and trust the staff has put into us throughout this process, and we are very proud of the final result, and I hope that you as board members will be as well. So the final document in front of you, and you all have it, I believe, in your packets, represents the culmination of 2 years' worth of work, evaluating our current model, getting feedback from teachers, researching best practices, identifying the non-negotiables that we as a Hampstead school community value and that we want to see within all of our classrooms and interactions with the students, the community, and each other. We began this process in the fall of 2022 with an initial survey to staff, We formed a committee of staff willing to engage in this important process, and then we got to work. Reviewing feedback, exploring other models of evaluation. We spent some time researching components from nationally known models and distilled them into best practices that we believe are realistic to implement in Hampstead. This will also help us prioritize a culture of continuous improvement while supporting professional growth of our teachers as we move forward. So I do have a timeline of what was kind of accomplished during each season, if you're interested in that, or we can just start walking through the document. Want to walk
You
through
walk
it?
through, yeah.
All right, so
That
I'm going to
sounds great.
ask Ms. Parsons to scroll through. So this is a table of contents, of course. As you know, every district in New Hampshire is required to have a performance evaluation system that is written both by teachers and principals. It is a component of RSA 189-1A-3 under our duty to provide education. So that's our introduction and purpose. Our objectives with this model, if we keep scrolling, are to provide professional staff with timely and targeted feedback via unscheduled short-duration observations. This will allow administrators to provide immediate feedback based on 4 major domains. Keep scrolling. Those domains are educational environment, relationships with students and families, instructional practices, and professional responsibilities. Another goal of this model is to make a shift away from the current pre-scheduled, predetermined observations and meetings and towards an approach that is guided by more current research. It affords more opportunities. This new model will afford for more opportunities for coaching and mentoring, and to reflect on our practice and set goals for improvement. Ultimately, we would like to be able to tailor our professional learning and ensure our administrators get a more accurate picture of our professionals' day-to-day instructional practices and interactions. Additionally, we want a process that ensures fairness and transparency in the evaluation process. So if we scroll down on pages 4 and 5, we've outlined our goal setting processes. Each year, educators will set 2 evidence-based goals, one that relates to students or instructional improvements, and the other will relate to professional practice. Additionally, the student and instructional goals should align to one of the following domains. So we have educational environment, relationships, or instructional practices, while the secondary goal of professional practice will align to their professional responsibilities domain. So you can scroll down just a little bit. So our first goal of students or instruction will align to these first 3 domains, and our professional practice will align to this last domain. Okay, on pages 5 through 8, we detail the observation criteria and go on in detail to explain what we believe effective teaching looks like within each one of those domains. Each of these paragraphs explain the non-negotiables for one of the domains, and while it is not expected that we see all of the components listed in the domain during an observation, our administrators will be able to note what they do see during these unscheduled short duration observations. We believe commitment to noting and working to incorporate these components over time will help us ensure all students get the exposure and access to high quality teaching and learning opportunities they deserve. Does anyone have questions about that so far? On page 7, you will see a difference in the evaluation plan between our annual contract observations and our observation cycles for those on continuing contract. And it's all kind of broken down in organized little outline format. For those on annual contract, there will be a minimum of 3 observations each year, followed by a post-observation meeting. An additional 4th observation is at the discretion of the administrator to address specific concerns or areas of focus. For those on continuing contract, there will be a minimum of 2 observations a year, and meetings may be requested by either the staff or the evaluator. It may be easier to see this plan laid out in a more graphic form in Appendix B, which is at the back of your packets. On page 8, you will see passages that explain the end of the year reflection meeting process. So this is again broken into annual and continuing contract. We know from years of research that reflection on our practice is one of the most important aspects of an educator's job. With this model, we have created a plan for each educator to have a conversation with their administrator to reflect on their observations and progress towards their goals. And lastly, you will find a glossary of professional learning terms as well as an appendix, several appendices that include our forms, our goals form, our evaluation plan, and then finally the staff evaluation form. And then lastly is the end of year reflection form. So during our pilot process, we have been able to get some feedback from the teachers who participated, and I just wanted to note that there was an overwhelming interest in participating in this pilot. When we first launched it in the fall, we solicited teachers to say who wants to try out this new model, and I believe it was 83 responses of please sign me up for the pilot. So they were excited, I think, to just have something that's a little bit more efficient and streamlined. So I do have some quotes from teachers around I'm finding the new evaluation model much more manageable in regards to goals that I need to write, the expected observations and scheduled discussions. This new model is less redundant than past models, which is nice to hear. I think this new model is more authentic, so many fewer forms. Prior to this pilot, we would be completing many forms that often ask the same things. I think this is a lot more streamlined. And I could go on. I probably have 7 or 8 more quotes, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Has the, I mean, that's great to hear that the feedback has been positive for taking this on in the first place, because it sounds like teachers want to gain feedback. They want to improve and want to know where their areas of improvement are. Has there been any pushback or any feedback on the unscheduled observations?
I have not received any pushback on the unscheduled short duration observations. We do have, and we will continue to kind of calibrate as administrators on our signaling with teachers as to how a teacher will know they're being observed, because we do walkthroughs all of the time, and not every walkthrough will become an observation. Most
Right.
won't, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we do need to indicate to the teachers that this one is an observation and we'll be documenting. I think mostly the signal is we have our laptops with us and we're typing.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually just say to the teacher, I'm here to do your observation. But we can shore those things up to be sure that people understand that there's a difference between a casual walkthrough and a more formal walkthrough observation.
Great.
Do the teachers have an option of saying this isn't a good time?
They have not said that yet, to my knowledge. It has
Okay.
not come up, but certainly we can have that discussion if we need to, if there's concern.
I feel like if they're elevated or there's something going on, giving them that option will create a comfort level with them.
Yes.
I love the simplicity of it because it allows for easy to understand and relevant feedback. I love that they're setting goals and then you're helping them evaluate if they're meeting those goals and to give them feedback to increase on those goals, because it allows the teachers to help get coaching in a way that they'll appreciate as opposed to feeling judged, which is a super important part. So I think this is really well done and definitely in the right direction.
Thank you.
I would just agree with what Carl said, but then also kind of challenge the administration to just make sure that everyone's spending time calibrating what look-fors are, because the last thing you want this tool to become is something that's kind of redundant, because evaluation and observation of teachers can be so subjective. So just make sure we're looking at the same things.
It might be helpful to know we've already done one instructional round this year to calibrate, and we did take the time to do it across multiple grade levels, across UAs and classrooms with special ed and specialists. But that is part of our annual, that'll become part of our annual kind of leadership routine.
Perfect.
But I completely agree, the calibration is a very important aspect. One other thing, and I don't think I mentioned it, is you will see the language in these domains. It's very succinct, and it took a long time to kind of get the right lingo and the right verbiage that we really wanted to articulate what we value. You will see some non-negotiable. These are our non-negotiables, and this includes some really wonderful best practices, including many of the tenets we've learned about UDL over the years. So.
My question is, do you have an online, platform for this, or is this all like paper?
I was going to ask the same
We
thing.
do. We use TeachPoint as our online platform. It's a pretty simple online form that controls where the form starts and then where it goes for an approval and a signature and then back, and then it's all stored and archived. We also take time during our summer retreats to divide up the evaluations and determine which administrator is evaluating which teacher. I do think this lightens the load for everyone. The teacher load is much lighter with this process, and our administrator's load is also lightened. There were so many unnecessary forms and meetings in our current model, actually.
Great.
So.
Are there any collective bargaining implications? Nothing?
No, largely, the specific observation and evaluation model is driven by the professional growth model and not by the CBA. CBA does have language about supervision and evaluation, but the mode in which it's done is usually done through a mutual agreement outside of that agreement, which is what we have here. And to Nicole's point, just to drive this home, the number one thing that we hear from teachers is they just need more time. And this is slightly anecdotal, but in conversations I've had with our building administrators, there's about 6 hours of time between the administrator and the professional that goes into our current model for a single observation. If you look at what Nicole and her team have developed, we're under an hour. So it's a pretty significant savings of time. And it's also just more authentic. It's
Right, yeah.
real-time feedback. It's not the, for lack of a better term, the dog and pony show where you know the administrator's coming into your classroom. So we believe that this is a really effective tool for teaching and learning.
I love it.
Something one of my districts did was, for an evaluation, they had the administration have a classroom, and then they went over how they evaluated it afterwards as a baseline, and the administration really appreciated being the kids in the classroom, and they thought it was really funny. So, I don't know. It's a suggestion. I don't know.
I love it.
All right.
Yeah, we've had several teachers offer us to come in and calibrate during an instructional round, and that was a wonderful exercise, just so that we could really put each domain to the test in a variety of settings. We want a form that's flexible, but can also help us, articulate exactly what we see in the classroom space. So, good.
And I think the other piece that I've heard Nicole mention too is that there needs to be some fluidity to this process. We imagine that what will happen after a few rounds, that we go back, not only do we calibrate how we performed the observation, but even to make some modifications to the process. As we really dive deep in this, the longer we go, we know there'll be an evolution to this process, and we're open to that.
So I believe I am looking for school board adoption of this new model.
I would like to propose to adopt this professional performance evaluation model.
So moved.
We'll second that.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Really well done.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great job. Okay, on the new professional growth model, if it's okay with the board, I would recommend tabling this one until our next meeting. This will allow Nicole and her team to prepare a little longer for it. Everyone's okay with that? Everyone good? Okay. Moving on, Mr. Dowd is going to give us an HCS renovation update.
Yes, very well, thank you. So our renovation, demolition, and site setup was scheduled to be in place this week. The general contractor has had a difficult time obtaining a satisfactory masonry contractor. We did not expect the masonry contractor to be on site this week. We did expect demolition to be taking place this week, and so goes the chain of events that would lead to masonry, which is a critical part of the project. In light of that, they have obtained or retained or feel confident they will have someone who will be able to do the work. And it's an odd job because it's a very large, it's not a large-scale project, it's a large project. That's a good way to put it. So for us to do the entire 60s wing, we're bringing in perhaps a different type of contractor to be able to handle that type of volume. So we expect that they'll be staging and setting up next week with demolition to begin late next week. I don't think that this is a terrible thing to the extent that if we know we're going to be having a delay in obtaining a masonry contractor, I would rather have the site not touched, no fencing up, no contractors on site until we're really ready to roll. And so that will occur next week. We have our first construction meeting, which I think, Carl, you've been invited to anyway, which is more of an operational level meeting on the 30th. And I don't anticipate that if we can begin, I don't anticipate there are going to be any delays in the time frame if we can begin that demolition work at the end of next week. So we're in okay shape. I'd like us to be more on schedule, but there was built in a little bit of extra time, a little bit of cushioning, so we should be fine. So again, we've spoken with the teachers in the surrounding classrooms, or Dr. Cheney has worked with them to see if it gets too noisy, do they need to relocate? We've identified a few areas where that can happen. So I think we're in relatively good shape. So any questions from the board?
Any questions? No?
No? And I will reiterate that, which I believe I had mentioned at the last meeting, we will have construction fencing going up. The parking lot, which is the drop-off loop for HCS, has been cleared of vehicles for parking, so there'll be no parking back there. Most of our parents don't park there. That's a lot of staff that do park back there. We will have construction fencing up, and the area will be fenced off, but the drop-off loop itself from morning drop-off and afternoon pickup should not be changed at all, so that there shouldn't be any impact in traffic flow or anything like that. Our construction folks know when our peak times are, and they've instructed their subs to act and operate accordingly, so that we know we're going to have, they don't want to show up and have a bunch of cars that they have to wait to try and get into a site, so they'll just work around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Dowd, you are also going to present the 2024-2025 tuition rates.
Yes. So in your packets, you should have a copy of a memorandum from myself proposing the tuition rates for the 2024-25 school year. The rates are $11,950 for kindergarten, and I'll speak to that in a moment. $23,900 for elementary, $26,200 for middle school, and special education rate is set at $47,800. This is simply a multiplication of 2. This is just the doubling of the elementary rate. The purpose of these rates is to have a rate set and certain and approved by the board, which out-of-district students who are attending the district for a number of reasons, perhaps a parent wants to tuition a student in, or there may be other reasons to have these rates, particularly if we have a certain placement from the state or something like that. We want to have something on record. So these are the rates that I've suggested for that purpose. The kindergarten rate is approximately half because that really covers your half-day rate. Our in-district kindergarten rate tuition for full-day kindergarten is at $4,500. I recommend leaving that where it is for the 24-25 school year. The way that I develop these rates is I look at our most recent published Department of Education cost per pupil amounts. Our most recent is 22-23, so it's the year-ago rate. I take that, I advance it by the current year budget. I take that and I advance it by the succeeding year budget, next year's budget, and come up with the rate. Now, we do have some bubbles in enrollment at different grade levels, and so depending on where things are, we could come up with some very high rates for certain schools at times. And so I level those out a bit here, recognizing that if someone wants to send a student to the middle school and perhaps our overall enrollment to the middle school is down, that drives our cost per student cost up, but we really have to act within and operate within reason. We can't have our rates going up and down every year. They'll probably go up every year, but we try and flatten that out a bit. So, any questions on these rates?
Not on the rates themselves. If you had to estimate in a percentage how many out-of-district students we have between the central school and the middle school, what would you say?
Really, a handful.
A handful.
Not even, and a lot of those students may be students of staff. And we have a separate policy on record from the school board that addresses that. There's a discount involved in that. We really, I don't think we have anyone that would be actually paying these rates in our school right now.
I don't think we have any, yeah.
Okay.
But you never know. And we need to have the rates in the event that it does come up.
So you are looking for board approval on those numbers, correct?
That's correct, yep, based on my memo dated May 23rd, 2024.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Dowd? No. Okay. Well, I will make a motion to approve the proposed tuition rates for the 2024-2025 school year.
Second.
All approved? Okay. Mr. Dowd, you are popular today. We are moving on to the general assurances discussion.
General assurances. So general assurances is a document that we provide to the Department of Education which shows our commitment and our understanding of what our requirements are as a subrecipient of federal funds. From a technical perspective, the Department of Education, the New Hampshire Department of Education, is a recipient of federal funds like IDEA, Title I, et cetera. We are considered a subrecipient under the New Hampshire Department of Education. The general assurances that you see, and for years I felt like the boards, these did not end up in front of the school board. These really are administered by administration for the most part. However, I think it is very, very helpful that they be in front of the board. And I think, Andy, you had mentioned that you had read through them soup to nuts, maybe an issue of an insomnia or something, and you need to go to sleep or something, but hopefully did that purpose because it's pretty boring.
Something I do in my free time.
Yeah. But there are some parts that are helpful for the board to understand what we as administrators have to be equipped with from a personnel perspective, from a systems perspective. And those start on page 5 of 17, specifically the grant management requirements. We're required to have a financial management system, written policies and procedures. That's the responsibility of the board. We must have internal controls, and we must have appropriate staffing and structure to be able to support that. There are certain allowable costs where we have to undergo audits, which we do. We submit certain reports as well to the Department of Education. And so I think it is important and very helpful for the school board to know what those obligations are. We do receive quite a bit in federal funding annually, but it does come with a price, and the price is that we have to keep our house in good order, which does require resources, which, quite frankly, are probably resources very well spent. So I don't know if you have any questions on these generally.
I would just say that I really appreciate that our staff does such a good job with grant writing.
Would agree.
Which makes it well worth it. So are these assurances done every year?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any major changes from the previous year for the insurances that we have here?
Not that I'm aware of, nothing dramatic.
Okay. So maybe some wordsmithing, but no brand new giant policies or anything that we should know about?
No, not that I know of. In fact, your policies are on point. We've covered them all on page 6 of 17. I think what ends up changing annually is maybe the way that it's stated, or how the Department of Education is when they present these documents to us for us to review, sign, and return to them. They in turn will try and make them make a little bit more sense, so things might get moved around, points might get articulated, but I don't recall there being any substantial change. I think the biggest change that we had was simply getting the Department of Education to request that these go in front of the school board years ago, and they have been subject to audits themselves, so I think they've better refined what these are over the years. So we have a fairly well-articulated document that they continue to refine more than change. So as these audits happen for the Department of Education, they realize that maybe there's a deficiency or something that they should be better reporting or better holding us accountable for, and that ends up in these documents. So if you're all in agreement, I don't think it really requires a vote. It requires that we simply present it, and there is a place for the chair to sign, as well as the superintendent, with an initial on every page because, well, it's the Department of Education.
I have read and initialed the document and signed the back. Is there. All right, so with that general assurances discussion and grant funding, we move on to our next agenda item. And just for the public's benefit, so each year as a board, we authorize the superintendent and the business administrator to apply for and receive on behalf of the district federal and state grant funding. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to authorize Mr. Thompson and Mr. Dowd to independently or jointly apply for and receive on behalf of the district federal and state grants and funding, which may include approving and signing of the appropriate forms as needed, and to file such authorization forms with the New Hampshire Department of Education.
Second.
All those in favor? Excellent. Okay. Now for the summer hiring delegation. We are going to review the provisions of policy GCF, which state that the school board shall elect one board member to act on personnel matters while the board is not in session during the summer months. So what that means is we vote on someone to handle any personnel hiring discussions, those types of things over the summer while we're not having board meetings. Ratification of that one member's action shall then be presented to the full board at their first regular meeting of the school year. Consensus on the protocol for this policy should be given, and a motion is required to elect the board member responsible for the 2024 summer hiring. So, I am comfortable nominating myself, but it's also, it's up to the board to elect someone, so.
I've done it the last 2 years. I'm totally okay with doing it again.
Okay.
Yeah. I like getting emails from Melissa being like, hey, want to come hang out now?
Sure, okay. I feel good about that. Do you feel okay with Carl doing it?
I would have nominated you as the chair.
Nominated me as the chair. But yeah, since you have a history of doing it, I'm comfortable with you continuing in that role. So does this, yeah, this does require a motion. I'll make a motion to nominate Carl as the liaison through the summer months to deal with personnel discussions.
I second it.
Great. Second by Missy. All approved. All right. Moving on, the superintendent evaluation update. So in accordance with the CBIR evaluation of the superintendent, the board will go into a non-public session tonight to approve the written evaluation of the superintendent. There will be a final update at the school board meeting on June 11th before the evaluation process wraps up by the June 15th deadline. And now moving on to policy readings. So there are 5 different policies in your packet for second reading. Let's see. All right, so again, just reviewing these are the second reading of the policies. So JKAA was the use of child restraints and seclusion. IHAMA is teaching about alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. FEA is educational specifications. EBCD has to do with emergency closings. And EBCE deals with school closings and emergency closings as well. So board members, if you'll go ahead and review those. And I guess I would defer to Bob or Missy, who attended the latest policy meeting. Are there any significant changes that occurred between now and the last time we read through these, or are they all the same?
Well, the policies you just read, they're here for second reading, so those have resided at the board level and have not been reviewed by the policy committee. The policies under first read, many of which align with the model policy for New Hampshire school boards, from the New Hampshire School Board Association. We did make we added some additional language to the JICH, which is the Student Drug and Alcohol Abuse policy.
Okay. All right. So board members, I will be looking for a motion to adopt the 5 policies you see in front of you.
The second read.
Yes, the 5 policies that were there for, oh, hold on,
Yes, that's correct.
for second read. Thank you, sorry. I will make a motion to not adopt the policies, to move these on to second reading.
No, you had it right the first time to adopt.
Yeah.
This is second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
That was I was confused because then we went back and we were talking about the first read ones.
Okay,
So that was it. That was
got
my
it.
fault.
All right. So I will be making a motion to adopt these 5 policies.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, for first reading, we have JH that was mentioned previously in the agenda, having to do with student attendance, absenteeism, and truancy. It looks like there was a policy committee meeting in December 19th, 2023, where we tabled that to allow the attendance committee to discuss at their own meeting in January. And specifically, there were some changes around special requests made by parents or guardians granting a waiver of the policy. The next policy in your packet is GBEBA, having to do with staff dress code.
Appreciate that there's a provision in this for specialized days, so we may see people dressed up in holiday outfits or random other spirit days.
All right, next policy is JJC, the student performances. This one is for discussion to update the policy per the request of a committee board member representative.
Yeah, this came out of the Destination Imagination discussion.
That's right.
Yeah, so essentially we changed the dollar amount from $3,000 to $6,000. That would be the district's commitment to a national competition for students. Just knowing that the buying power of $3,000 in 2005 is a lot less than it is today. So it's reflective of inflation.
The next policy, JICH, student drug and alcohol abuse. And if there's any feedback or anything you'd like to see revised in this, feel free to.
On this one, not a revisement, but so the staff is supposed to do a verbal report and then do a report in writing afterwards. Is there a standardized form for that, or is it just an email, this is why?
I will defer to our middle school principal on that question.
An email would be fine.
So, okay, so they can just email.
And speaking maybe more generically, whenever we have a policy review, what that does is it triggers a review of procedures.
Okay.
Now, if you go onto our school district website and our policies and procedures, there are some district-wide procedures that are listed there that have been codified under what we call the -R procedures. And then there are some procedures that reside at the building level. So what a change in policy does for any policy is it triggers a review of those procedures.
And when we talk about student drug and alcohol abuse, including in that would be vaping, correct?
That is, and really the vaping issue that has been previously discussed at the middle school is what necessitated our review of the policy.
I'm glad you're taking proactive steps.
And just to sort of elaborate on your question, Dr. Hubner, I know that Mrs. Milbury and her staff have worked on the development of procedures, specifically around the identification of students that may be vaping or in possession of an illegal substance. So that's been an ongoing work, and quite honestly, an ongoing challenge. So.
What's the consequence for carrying I don't know, vaping instrument?
I guess I'd defer to Mrs. Milbury on that. Yeah, if you could come up. The question was, what is the consequence for being in possession of a vape?
Some of it depends on the situation, but in general, we are working more towards a restorative approach and education around it. So where it used to be an automatic 5-day out-of-school suspension, we've been working to keep students in school, put some in-school suspension time with some education around vaping. They're doing some work, they're meeting with people, talking to people. We've brought Lori Warnock in to do some education, so we're going away from the you're automatically out of school to the how can we educate you and work with you and the family, bringing families in to prevent it from happening again.
Good, thank you.
And I think one of the challenges that has been communicated to me, both by Principal Milbury, but also the staff, is there seems to be a higher incident of initial reports versus students that have been determined to be in violation of the policy. So that establishment of, what we call reasonable suspicion has been a challenge for the school this year specifically.
Okay.
And just for the public's benefit, I think it's worth stating that, the policy specifically says the school principal shall immediately report all incidents involving a controlled substance to the appropriate local law enforcement agency, the superintendent, and the parent or guardian. So we're pretty thorough in who that gets communicated to. All right, number 5, IHAL, teaching about religion. Last revised in 2005. However, the latest NHSBA sample language is from 1998 and consists only of very brief passages as shown. Any questions or comments on this policy?
So on this, if they're teaching from a world history book about religions and the basic facts of religion, that would still be allowable. It's just getting into the depth and minutia we're going to stay away from that.
Yeah, the topic of religion is found throughout several standards and curriculum strands, largely in world history. The reason for the change was the policy in its current form had a lot of language in it that I think left open for interpretation, could expose the district to some level of liability. So the adoption of this New Hampshire School Board Association model policy makes it very clear in one sentence.
Awesome.
I appreciate that it was made much more concise. All right, and last one, JIH, interrogations and searches. This is a suggested rewrite from sample New Hampshire SBA language written in 2009, including a name change to the policy itself. I think it is important to have this policy in place, specifically going back to what Superintendent Thompson just said about reasonable suspicion. So we want to make sure we have clear policies around how these things get investigated and searches of our students' personal property.
So one of the things on prescription medicine, if a student has prescription medicine, they're supposed to give it to the nurse, correct? They're not
They
supposed
are.
to carry it.
With the exception of certain emergency medications,
Like inhalers or-
rescue inhalers,
Okay.
things of that nature, EpiPens. But that is determined through a conversation with the school nurse and a parent.
Okay, excellent.
I might not be seeing it, but is there a provision or operating procedure for a refuse search? Student refuses to consent to a search?
Well, it does say in number 3, authorized personnel may conduct a search of the student's person, as noted above, where a student freely and voluntarily consents to such a search. Consent obtained through threats or coercion is not considered to be freely and voluntarily given.
So I think what he said, so in some schools, if they ask to search you, you say no, there is a consequence for not being searched, because that is equivalent or more than what would happen if they got caught with something. So if you have a vape, and the consequence would be 5 days of in-school suspension, refusing to be searched would then be 5 days of in-school suspension.
But I think to further answer your question, Dr. Poor, it does not explicitly state what that consequence would be. I am not aware of a student that has refused to search, but that would result in disciplinary action to be determined by the school administration, and I would rely on their judgment and discretion to be able to make the determination about what that consequence might look like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally too worried about what the actual consequence is, just language around the school having the ability to impose a consequence for refusal to submit to a search.
Yep. And the board could certainly entertain the addition of that language if they so choose to.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
I would agree.
Yeah. Could you find possible language that we could put in for the next meeting?
I can do that. What I would say from a timeline standpoint, and this is the determination of the board, should we sort of table this and not move it forward to second reading, we would bring it back. Well, I guess we would actually be able to bring it back for second reading if we added language. So yes, I can do that, Dr. Abno. To be clear with the board, I will look for any model language that's out there. We'll add it, and then we'll bring it back for second reading.
Yes.
Does that work? Okay.
I'm good with that. Great. So board members, at this time, I will make a motion to move these 6 policies to second reading.
So moved, or second.
All approved. Okay, moving on to board comments and correspondence. Any comments from the board?
I went to the Pinkerton Sending Towns meeting.
Yes.
Really interesting stuff around, they don't call it advisories, but I think it's flex. And how that's used to identify students that may be having, problems in a variety of places. They have a therapy dog and they're training a second one, which is amazingly cool. We also talked a little bit about Pinkerton adopting special ed contained programs, and they have started to do that somewhat on the request of Derry, and they do have a new director of student services, so we kind of brought up that and should try to gain more capacity in the local area. And then something that came up, I'm reading a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and this is something for after vacation, but that's something that I think the board should take a look at.
It's called?
It's The Anxious Generation, but I'll send it out to the board. But in general, device use and what we should be doing, and what I would say is I'm about halfway through. But this has been something that I've been thinking about, and I honestly thought, man, I wish districts would do something about this. And then I'm not even kidding you. And then I was like, wait, I'm on a school board. I could actually do something about this. But I think it's worth a discussion for kind of sending it out to us and then kind of giving it for you to, as the district, to kind of look at over the summer and then have a discussion when we get back. But not anything super urgent, but something that I'd like to look at in the long term.
I agree, and I know this is board member correspondence, but just to follow up on that, Carl. I was very impressed with the counseling department's presentation. When you're a parent and you send your child to a school of 3,000 children, you could be a little worried about what does personalization look like. To hear the counselors talk about the data that they have about kids, like meaningful data, and also each counselor meets with every kid on their caseload, because they maintain caseloads under 200, which is very low for a high school. They meet with each student on their caseload at least once a year, which when you have 180 kids on your caseload, and you're managing crisis, that's pretty impressive.
And the advisory teachers meet with them once a week, and I thought it was really cool. All the administration up to Tim Powers has an advisory, which is, I thought, really cool.
All right. Any other comments from the board?
Pinkerton's counseling program. My daughter's met the therapy dogs, and I think they're great, and I've had really good experiences with all of them. My daughter went to prom. Prom was awesome. It rained, but it was still okay. Yeah, that's it.
Heard a lot of positive things about the therapy dogs, and I know we've explored it a little bit as a district. I'd like that to continue further. All right, moving on to the consent agenda with Superintendent Thompson.
All right, I don't have anything official for the personnel report. We are still in the process of filling a couple of professional staff openings. That's music, and then we have 2 regular education classroom positions at the central school. I would say, given the time of year, the number of vacancies we have, I think we're in pretty good shape. We also have some support staff openings, para educators, So if you're interested in, working for the Hampstead School District, please go on our website. Please reach out to myself or to our building principals. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Moving on to the superintendent report, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tomaselli, who's going to give an update on Summer Learning Academy, as well as another item that escapes me right now. Oh, the Professional Learning Day on Friday.
She's on it.
She's on it, of course.
I printed out the agenda. So this past Friday, we'll start with that. We had our Professional Learning Day on May 24th. This was a kind of a unique professional learning day because we have been listening to feedback from our staff saying that they would like to present on a variety of different topics and have more choice. So we've been trying to solicit the expertise of our staff members. So we were very delighted that our new ELL teacher, her name is Nicole Ponte, made a beautiful presentation on ESOL supports and practices at the elementary school. This was a really kind of high-level overview of what is legally required of us to protect our English language learning students, and then also the different benchmark assessments that they participate in, and also some classroom supports that we can put in place to ensure ELL students are able to access their education. So it's a much more complicated process than maybe any of us realize. So it was very helpful to have her kind of give an overview, and she'll be doing something at the middle school in the future. We also had another training from iReady. This was to help us dive deeper into some additional reporting features, and then also help us organize our WIN groups a little bit better and use some of their kind of tricks and tips they have to making WIN groups more efficient and tight with the targeted small group instruction. So anything we can learn to help us do that is always wonderful. We also finished the day with a presentation by our BCBAs, which is a very unique experience. Usually BCBAs don't really get up in front of the staff and speak, but these are individuals who specialize in behavior and working with specific students who need their supports. So I really want to thank Stephanie Palmacato, Kelly Martinez, and also Julie Barbeck helped to prepare a presentation for our staff on the integrated experience of staff wellness and regulation. So this is the first kind of toe in the sand with, or toe in the water, I guess, with trauma-informed teaching and learning. So we're very excited. It was a busy day, and it was a beautiful day, and so I just want to acknowledge all the teachers that were here on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend learning and staying focused. It's not an easy task, but we have a lot of important professional learning to do, so that was a great day. Behind you, you will see a Summer Learning Academy kind of a schedule. So once again, this year we're going to offer a Summer Learning Academy with a variety of programming. This is not visible to the public yet. These registration forms are not linked up yet, but they will be the first week in June. But I wanted to have had some inquiries from the community around what we'll be offering. So again, this year, we will be mirroring ESY, which is our extended school year program, and offering a Monday through Thursday morning program. All of these offerings are free to students who live in Hampstead. And they will be from 8 to 11 at the middle school and 8:30 to 11:30 at the central school. So we have some interesting new offerings this year, including a kindergarten boot camp for any child that's going into first grade that might still need help with routines and small group centers, and even lunch. Our half-day kindergarten students don't participate in lunch, so this is really going to help get some of those friends just the basics they need so that they can be successful in first grade. We will also have a new elementary literacy camp for students entering first through fourth grade, and we have identified students that we think would be a great fit for these programs, so they'll get first priority to register, and then we will open it up to the general population after that. At the middle school, we'll be having a Tinkercad 3D printing adventure camp again with Mr. Bremillard. That filled up incredibly quickly last year, and we will be running some camp invention modules. The second week in July, we're going to add a new program called The Science of Cooking with Mrs. Griffin. This will be exploring some of the molecular interactions in the process of cooking and baking. She is a fantastic science teacher, so we're excited to have her participating in Summer Learning Academy. We're also going to have another session of STEMtastic Summer, which will be for our incoming 5th and 6th graders. If you can keep scrolling. In mid-July, we will have 3 days at Field to Fork Farm. That is going to be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday program. And we'll have the first ever, and I think we're going to call it Seussical Storytellers. It's going to be a writing camp themed around Dr. Seuss stories, where kids will read, take away like a life hack or a life skill, and then generate their own little stories and publish them. So we have a lot of exciting things coming together. The registration forms will be forthcoming, and I'll be sure to email all the families. We just need to make sure we nail down all of our staffing so that we can have safe ratios. But that's Summer Learning Academy.
I am incredibly proud of the district and the staff and you for putting this together, because one of the things that stands out in this district is the Summer Learning Academy, and it's something that we do, I think, better than just about anybody else. And if you don't know, this is not something that is normal. This is truly exceptional, especially for parenting kids, and I think it's incredibly creative. So thank you for the summer staff that are willing to participate.
And just to brag and maybe even sound arrogant, there are districts that have Summer Learning Academy. Guess where they stole it from? And that really is a testament to just not only Nicole's work, but the people who are willing to give up their summers to come in and work with kids and do some really dynamic, out-of-the-box thinking in an environment that really works well for every kid. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And just as a reminder to families, you can sign up for, any one of these weeks. You don't have to sign up for all 4, and it's all free. There won't be transportation this year, but we do have a number of staff that are committed to make these events happening. And some of these camps have really nice little take-home kind of items that the kids generate as well. So I'm pretty proud of it. And I just also wanted to mention that Katie Gallant is also going to help coordinate this year. So we're going to kind of slowly pass the torch on to her so she can help learn how to make some of these decisions and organize. And she's going to be on site at both schools during the summer to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Great.
All right, just to continue, Mrs. Milbury mentioned the 7th grade trip to Sunset Park Campground. I was very fortunate enough to be able to participate in that. Fun fact, that Brewster was actually my 9th grade science teacher. And to see him again, it's been about 33 years since the last time I saw him. And to see him working with our kids, and I commented to him, and I mentioned it at the Pinkerton meeting, like, you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you cannot take the classroom out of the teacher. It was just this really cool experience. And I appreciate the fact, I didn't have Mr. Nugent as a teacher, and I know that he has since passed, but the relationship that the school district has formed with Sunset Campground and his daughters is just such a testament to who he was as an educator. And as we typically do, just to notify the board, as Mrs. Milbury said, that his foundation has given us $300 for the middle school science department. And in talking with Lori Lynn Griffin, the 7th grade science teacher, they're going to use that to buy some outdoor science equipment that they can actually use at Sunset Park. So the other big news, well, there's a lot of big news, but is our Destination Imagination team. They went to Globals. They placed 22nd overall. That was in Kansas City last week. Just an amazing experience, an amazing competition, competing against students from the United States, Mexico, Turkey, Canada, and even China as well. And I know many people have seen some of the social media posts that's out there. Just what a tremendous experience. So again, I want to thank the board for their financial commitment to making this competition be able to happen. I can tell you in some of the research that I did on policies regarding student competitions, very few districts make such a commitment to students. Also, big news is the New Hampshire Education Department has named their 2025 Teacher of the Year semifinalists. 8th grade math teacher Brittany Hewitt is among them. That is a very big honor for Brittany, who is a phenomenal teacher, but also for the district. This is the second year in a row that we've had a semifinalist for New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. That speaks volumes about the quality of the teachers that we have here in Hampstead. And then finally, I just wanted to reiterate Friday's Professional Learning Day. Nicole spoke about circles, right? So we did these restorative circles. And just as a reminder, a circle is a really, really basic concept. Is you sit in a circle, and there are some questions that guide the conversation, and all members of the circle have an opportunity to speak, gives voice to everybody. And so I participated in the circle on Friday, the questions were simple, such as like, what's a celebration, something that's going really well right now, and then what is a challenge? And I have to tell you, some of the things that I heard were some amazing celebrations. I had someone in my group who just got married last weekend, which is really cool. People who are expecting grandchildren and all the wonderful things that come. But I also heard some really hard things. This year has been a challenge for a lot of our educators, and that includes some of our administrators as well. Teachers are winding the year up, having left really everything on the table. And, you would expect that from educators, but I also am really concerned about their wellness. And so, we've been having conversations as a leadership team, and we're going to make some adjustments to our end of the year professional learning to account for that, to engage in more conversations, to focus more on staff wellness. It's just such a critical, it's hard enough as it is to be a public school educator. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to take care of our educators. And again, making plans for what does next year look like. So I would challenge the board to challenge the administration. In August, we will come here with a new, fresh set of deliverables for the strategic plan, and making sure that a key component of those deliverables is that we're taking care of everybody, because I think that's a critical part of our work as we wind the year down. So with that said, I will open up to the board for any questions that you might have in regards to the superintendent report.
I'll just say, with Sunset Campground, I'm just thankful that it's there, thankful that our students have the opportunity to do more hands-on outdoor activities. I think back to previous board members and kind of Megan Malcolm's legacy of really trying to push that outdoor education element. So this is kind of bringing that to fruition and allowing kids to just be more hands-on. So really thankful to them. Any other questions or comments for Bob? Okay. Thank you, Bob. All right, moving on. Other business and old business. I don't have any board members. Okay, at this point, we will move into non-public under RSA 91A3, A, and C, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or disciplining of such employee, and then matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself. And we will discuss the results of the superintendent's evaluation, and just for the public, no decisions will be made public tonight, at least in terms of the superintendent evaluation process.
Second?
Yeah, at this point, I'll make a motion to go into non-public, and you'll second that. Okay, perfect. Yes. All approved?
Yeah.
Yes, let's do.
Dr. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Dr. Poor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. It's 8:43.